Taylor Haynew. I'm from outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and this is my latest Lego automaton here. This is called Two Frogs on a Log in a Bog. And there's kind of a lot going on here. We have two frogs at the very top, and they're watching a fly go back and forth, and periodically they shoot their tongue out. And they've been trying all weekend, but they haven't caught that fly yet.
Give them time. They'll get there eventually.
Yeah. And then there's also a scene under the water where there's some fish going around. They're helping to make some waves in the water. And then in the front, there are two froglets where they're tadpoles that have just started to grow legs, although they're growing arms instead of legs. Yeah, that's all driven by a single motor in the back, or this can run off a hand crank.
That's amazing, but there's so much going on here. So let's start with kind of the frogs there at first.
Sure.
Talk about kind of how you built those, and then what are the mechanics with those?
Yeah, so the frogs, this is my first time working with these Technic panels and trying to do a build using that as like a shaping material. So this is they've a lot of parts that have just come out in this lime green color that's been made that really easy. I also found a lot of pick-a-brick parts as kind of a hot color for Lego right now. But the mechanics are a little complicated. So there's, let's start with how the frogs follow the fly. So the fly is going back and forth on a chain system, the same chain as the fish. And underneath the fly, going down from the bottom, there's a post. And that post engages with two long forks that are underneath the layer, the very bottom layer, where you can see the blue tile, even below the underwater scene. And that pin that's coming underneath the fly is captured by the forks, and it kind of moves it back and forth. And so that makes sure that the frogs are always aimed at the fly, because that fork is engaged with that pin at all times. And then there's a separate mechanism that runs up through the center of the rotation of the frogs. That is a shaft that's rotating, and if you look around the side, there's a little yellow lift arm that goes around in a loop, and that will cause the other long green lift arm to move up and move the tongue forward, and the tongue is a friend's zip line is the name of that part.
I was wondering, so that's a friend zip line piece, yeah. And then you've got a light attached to it?
Yeah, I went over to the Bling Bling Bricks here at Brick Fair and just picked up, there's about $20 of lights in here, and it really made it pop. So, and I had this idea about having the end of the tongue lit up, and it works.
Yeah, well, that's spectacular. And then you've got a couple other areas of movement, obviously the fish going under there, so is that just kind of a big rotation? Yeah, there's a chain going around in a big loop. And the fish are just attached every, I don't know, 10 or 12 chain links. There's a fish. Those run. And then there's another shaft that comes out front that runs. There's the two froglets they're wiggling around. They're moving at slightly different rates. I can show you a little bit about, I can take one of the frogs off and show you more detail if you want. I'll have to turn it off. Okay. Well, it's great to see a little more behind the scenes here and kind of how this comes together.
So it's a little tricky with the lights on there. Hang on one second. So this is the frog, and he's kind of a crazy little contraption of gears here, but you turn this, when you turn this shaft, it'll make that yellow lift arm go around, and then it just, well, hold on a second. This one we didn't step in, okay? This one is correct. That pops the tongue up every time it comes around. It's a little, it's not so happy out of water.
That's great to kind of see some of the parts you use there.
And then inside the mouth, the lower jaw kind of opens automatically. There's a string here on the side that's holding that closed, and then when the tongue starts to lift, that string takes up this, it becomes slack, and so the tongue can just fall under gravity. It's just loose here. So that just makes it so every time he opens his mouth when that thing happens.
Well, a lot of the parts kind of tie into other parts and makes everything kind of work together, multiple things happening at once.
Yeah, and actually I can run this with one frog, and I'll turn it around here. You can see the steering mechanism. If you come in from the side here. Excuse me, bud. So you can see underneath there how those are, without the frog on that frog normally sits on that platform, but it's completely separate from the actuation of the frog is the steering. So that, it's kind of nice because, well, everything's going to break, but it breaks in pieces rather than all at once. So, each frog can be individually fixed, or the steering system can be individually fixed. So it's one of these things at these having them at these shows is they run for a long time, and they do tend to break down after, depending on the build. The complexity is hours or sometimes minutes if I'm not lucky. But this one I kind of built that with in mind, easy to take apart and sort of troubleshoot the pieces individually.
I also love some of the parts you've used throughout here, really creative. Starting with the green brick separators, you've got a couple styles of those represented.
Yeah, thank you. These are the older style green brick separators. I had never seen these before. I had only had the orange and the teal ones, and then I was like, oh, maybe there's a green one. I looked up green brick separator and I found this, but then I learned later there was another one, but that only came in one kit. It was the Chinese theater, I think. That green brick separator was supposed to be Godzilla, so they had included that in the kit, and I had to source those. They're very hard to find. I had to go to Hong Kong to get those. But I didn't personally go. Be nice, but yeah, Bricklink helped me out there.
The use of the minifig torsos down here is also really, really great as well.
They're growing arms. So it's just, sometimes you're working on these things and you're like, oh, I should put legs on it. Wait a minute. And just crack myself up at 3 a.m. working on these things.
And then how did you get these clear pieces to kind of all move together and not mess up the movement of the fish and everything underneath?
Yeah, so I'll just turn it off here for a second. These are all just on hinge point, so you can see that any one of them can just pick up. And so the fish are all designed with a constantly sloping front, so it's always you've got some easy where it hits sort of from this black piece up. It's always just you can see out the back it drops off. There's nothing for it to catch on. So the idea is they're always moving in one direction. It's always an upward slope. And then there's a couple other hidden things I put. There's a piano keyboard here. I don't know for the piano players, but the front row of these water pieces is a piano keyboard. And then I always hide chickens in my pieces too. So there is a chicken hidden in here down in the underwater scenes, kind of poking out there.
And you've also got these nice kind of clear pieces over here, some pieces stuck inside.
Yeah, these are the frog eggs. So this is some kind of minifigure hat or underwater helmet or something, and then it's just some clear brick round plates and one black one. Kind of gives the appearance of a frog egg.
A little addition to the build next to it that's super neat is the painter there.
Yeah, so BrickFair does these printed tiles for everybody. You can tell them whatever image you want, and I did this one and a shot of this one I've done on a previous build where and I've got this little artist guy is painting the magician, which I've done as well down the table.
Well, spectacular work here. How has this run for you during the show so far?
It's been great. This is very reliable generally. There was a couple things I had to deal with, a gear to the middle of everything snapped into two, and I had to take it apart and put it back together, but it's sort of like when it runs until it doesn't. And I've been pretty fortunate with this one. Every one of these, when you run them out at one of these shows, it ends up being kind of an opportunity to find all the issues that you're going to find. So, and I'm planning to. The other tricky thing was packing these up to travel. So I made custom cases for these with, went to the container store, got some really nice containers and custom cut foam and everything, and it worked out. Things came here. I'm planning to go to the Scareback Festival in September, so I'm a little worried about taking these on the airplane, but that's, we'll see how it goes.
Super cool. That's a great show, and also congratulations on the Best Technic Award here at BrickFair as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a big honor.